holes in these windows. For this particular lecture, we are going to work destructively. It's okay. We'll talk about masks a little later. I want to take this one step at a time. So let's take a look at these two tools. As I mentioned in class, these little arrows, they shove all the extra stuff they don't have room for underneath. So everything here relates to what they call the marquee tool. Everything here relates to object selection. And we've also got this tool over here, which is the lasso tool. We've got a couple of different ways to use the lasso tool. Let me just run through these really fast. So we've got this marquee tool, and I can use it to get a nice clean square. And if I hit the delete key, I've just punched a hole in my image. Now, see the dotted line? That's called the marching ants. That is a live selection. And if I use the tool, if I go over here and start to draw, you can see that this deselected itself. If I want to start working someplace else and I have a live selection, you really need to deselect this before you move on to other things. Don't just leave the marching ants going, because Photoshop is going to assume whatever you're doing, you want to do it inside that selection box. This is not as complicated as it sounds. All you have to do is come up here and say deselect, or use, just click the deselect tool anywhere else, or click on any one of these other tools to deselect. The keyboard command is Command D. Okay, so just know that if you have live marching ants on your file, Photoshop is going to make an assumption about what you want to do. Okay, let's use another one. I want you to play with all of these. I'm going to grab my little magnifying glass and zoom in. You could do Command minus to zoom in. You could do Command plus to zoom, Command plus to zoom in, Command minus to move out. And just as a reminder, if you put your finger on the space bar, you get this nifty little thing that lets you zoom around the room. Okay, let's take a look at these. The lasso tool, I could draw this freehand if I wanted to. And that's kind of okay. It's a little bitty here, and that's because this is a 72 DPI image. We'll talk more about that in class. But if I hit undo and undo, Command Z, I can also use this too. See how this is still a live selection? If I click, it goes away. So this is the polygonal or polygonal lasso tool. Any curve is a series of short straight lines. And so I can close that and hit delete and do it that way. There's a bunch of ways to do this. I'm going to put my finger on the space bar and move over. There's also the magnetic lasso tool, which, as you see, if you use it, it's finding the color difference. It's finding the areas where the color is changing. Not the nicest line in the world, because you can see that the pixels as we get in here are getting a little choppy, and it's following that chop. So you can come up here and change any of those settings that you want to change. You can make it a feathered edge. You can change the width of where this thing kind of finds its magnetic, where it kind of clings to. You can play with all of this stuff. So there are those three tools. You can also, by the way, cut holes that are circular. You can do single rows if you want to. And let me just show you. If I have this rectangular tool, I'm going to put my mouse right here, and I'm going to put my finger on the Option key. With my finger on the Option key, I draw from the middle out. Just like in Illustrator, if you draw a shape using the Shape tool with your finger on the Option key. So I can reach a certain point and do that, and then I can add a shape. All right, and I can do this like one speck at a time if I really want to get granular. Let me undo for a second. Something that you can do that we talked about in class, if I draw this shape, and this is true of any one of these selection tools, and put my finger on the Shift key, I can add to the selection. I can just keep adding to the selection, and if I do this, and I don't want to delete this part of the window, So let's say I go up and get the polygonal lasso tool. This time I'm going to put my finger on the Option key. Notice the little minus sign that's showing up. I can, watch, I'll draw this and I'll come up here and it will subtract the selection. So you can add and subtract from selections to get to where you're going. I just hit the delete key. Let's go over here. So let's talk about these tools. Now, as I said in class, these tools, each tool works better with a certain type of object and a certain type of background. You're not going to get any joy with the object selection tool because there's not enough information. So let's see. Well, it did okay. It's looking for an object. It's looking for hard lines against hard lines. And this image isn't so great for that. These things are very close in value, which is why I didn't really get what I wanted to get. So I could edit this, right? I could put my finger on the Option key and say, you go away. And I could edit it the way that you just saw me edit a bunch of other things. But this is not the best tool for this particular job. We'll meet other images where this tool works better, and I'll show you one in the next video. But let's go on. Let's look at the Quick Selection tool. So again, the Quick Selection tool is doing its best, but this is a very ambiguous image. And so you can see that it's kind of grabbing extra stuff. Mess around with these. Different windows may respond to you in different ways because of the coloration of the windows. So just play around with them. Let's go on to the Magic Wand tool. The Magic Wand tool, unlike the other two tools, is looking for color. Whoops. And the Magic Wand tool has a sample size. So I'm going to use point sample. It's a very small sample because there's a lot of brick, as you just saw in this thing. So I use the Magic Wand tool, and you can see these very dark areas have been excluded from the selection. I'm going to put my finger on the Shift key, and I'm going to pick those up. I'm just clicking on them with my finger on the Shift key. And I'm going to come over here, and you can kind of see, I'm just kind of dragging here. And you can see the selection getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's grabbing like colors, all right? And the higher this tolerance number is, the more colors it's going to grab. So if this was at 32, which I think is the preset, it would probably have grabbed everything by now. And you can see it's trying to be very, it's really trying to show me what this looks like. I'm going to hit the delete key. And this is quite rough around the edges. This is a 72 DPI image at this moment. And so not the prettiest I've ever seen. I'll deselect that. But you get the idea. Try everything. Try it all once. Get a feel for the tools. Mess about. And I'll meet you in the next video.